Hello, this is SR. Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. The way my life is going, the situation I'm in, and the risks I'm taking in my marriage come down to the words he said to me on that fateful day. It's just business. That's how I should look at how things are now. My husband, the love of my life, knew nothing about my agreement, about the deal I made with the devil, about the deal with a man I don't really love as a person. Yes, he is a handsome and strong man, but at the same time he is arrogant, vain, and pompous. He's also my longtime lover, and I suppose I have to love him in some way. I certainly like what he's doing to me and has done for me, for that matter. Why did I agree to do this? Why do I keep doing this? Years of lies, evasions and deception, and all for what? The rush of adrenaline when I'm at the mercy of my strong lover, yes, of course. A sense of pride that I have been able to keep an innocent husband and family in the dark for so long. You can be sure. What amazes me is that I'm handling this with a clear conscience. I'm actually enjoying it. I really don't want to stop now. It's a part of my life and it means so much to me. It started so long ago. I must emphasize that I do not allow this to affect my husband. I have already said that he is and always will be the love of my life. My children are very important to me, although most of the work with them is done by my husband, caring and educating, and the like. You see, I'm too busy working. I love them, of course I do, and I will protect them above all others, even myself. What my lover gives me is necessary, is an important part of my life, but make no mistake, I need my husband and family much more. If I ever have to choose, there is no doubt who and what I would give up. I would certainly miss it, but until I have to choose, I will continue. So why am I risking something that is so important to me? To explain, I need to go back to my school and university days, to the happy, carefree, simple days when I had my share of random guys, nothing heavy, just fun evenings, as a rule. I gave my virginity to my first real boyfriend at the end of my senior year. We had fun together. We both knew that our relationship had no future. We were both heading to different universities, so when the time came, we broke off the relationship amicably. During the first 2 years of university, I didn't want to be too serious with anyone. A few dates did end up in bed, but it was just fun, part of the learning process. I had a couple of regular guys, but none of them lasted more than half a semester. I didn't like any of them. They were good guys, kind and respectful. Everything changed at the beginning of my senior year, when John and I first met at a party. There was an instant attraction between us. Physically he was my ideal man. He looked handsome and talked to me as an equal, not as a potential conquest for night entertainment. We danced, and the way he held me made me feel like I really belonged to him, safe in his arms. When the party came to an end, I readily agreed to a follow-up date with him. We met regularly and soon became exceptional. It was obvious that there was something special between us. He respected me for my intelligence, accepted my desire to be the best, we had a similar sense of humor, we enjoyed each other's company, and as our relationship developed, we found that we were more than compatible in bed. He shook my world, and I think I did the same for him. He was an attentive lover and knew what I liked. So he made sure that my needs were met every time we made love. However, I am getting ahead of my story. I studied at a 4-year course, where I had to work in the 3rd year. The university helped us with employment, helped us find companies that could provide training in addition to our curriculum. I was lucky to find a place not too far from campus, so I could stay in the house I shared with the girls I lived with for the first 2 years. The first time I met Grant was at an interview. His sister Natalie first interviewed me, and then introduced me to him, so that he would agree to hire me. He didn't say much, just told me about the company, what they do, explaining that he and Natalie jointly inherited the company from their father. When he spoke to me, there was an expression in his eyes that I find slightly frightening, an expression that I couldn't quite understand. I was used to men mentally undressing me, as I'm sure most women do, but it was more than that. He seemed to be looking not just at my body through my clothes, but right into my soul. It sent chills down my spine as I forced myself to remain calm and hold his penetrating gaze. The meaning of this view became clear to me only many years later, and it lies at the heart of my story. At that moment, however, I was pleasantly surprised when, after looking at me in silence for a long time, he turned his attention to his sister to tell her that he was pleased with her choice. From my first day, Natalie took me under her wing. She was kind to me, making sure that the work I was assigned was meaningful and useful for my education. She made sure that I understood what I was doing and why. I was part of the team, and the others welcomed me. The work was hard, but useful, and I learned a lot. Grant was a figurehead of the company, a salesman, if you will. He traveled regularly to implement the proposals that we had prepared in the office. He was always very professional in communicating with us, the staff, in the office, but I didn't communicate with him directly much. Soon after I started working there, we were rewarded with a lunch for the whole team. After our meal, we continued dancing. The treat was to celebrate the success of a lucrative contract, and although I hardly contributed, I was invited to join them, as on all subsequent occasions. During the first outing, the men in the team flirted with me, and to some extent I tried my best. It was all good, harmless entertainment, since all the men except one were married. I made it clear that it was just entertainment. I was not interested in continuing anything with any of them. Grant seemed a little distant from us, with the possible exception of Cindy, who was about 5 years older than me. I thought I saw a look flash between them, a brief intimate exchange that no one else seemed to see. I knew she was married because one day at lunch she told me about her husband and children, so I was a little surprised by what I thought I saw. Apart from this brief interaction, nothing else seemed amiss. The rest of the team, including Cindy and Grant, seemed at ease with each other and regularly switched dance partners. Perhaps I made a mistake by reading too much into a very short conversation between them. My chance to partner with Grant came quite late, and it was just one dance. He was a real gentleman throughout my short stay with him and smiled, thanking me for being a good partner. After that first meeting, I noticed that the guys stopped flirting with me. They laughed and joked with me, but the bedtime subtext disappeared. Many years later, I found out that Grant had made it clear to them that I needed to be left alone. We got together every couple of months, everyone enjoyed every opportunity, and I didn't see anything else between Cindy and Grant, so maybe I imagined it after all. Whenever it was my turn to slow dance with Grant, he held me tightly to him, and although I didn't really get attached to this man, I liked dancing with him. He had a bearing, he felt strong, controlling, even dominant. I respected him, and I felt safe with him. While we were together, he seemed to focus on me, on my pleasure. Nevertheless, he was always a gentleman. Over time, I began to feel a little disappointed that he didn't take any liberties with me. His arms never strayed, and he didn't snuggle up to me in an inappropriate way. I'm not sure how I would have handled it if he had, although I convinced myself that he was behaving well. I lived with my student friends not far from the university, so I met with them most of the weekend. Of course, sometimes I liked men's company, but, as in previous years, nothing permanent or serious. When my friends went home during the Christmas holidays, I had to work, so I stayed home alone, and of course, there was a corporate Christmas party coming up. I splashed out on a new dress and decided in advance to let my hair down. Tom, the only single guy on the team, agreed to accompany me, and we sat down with 3 others from our team who were with their partners. We had a great time. One thing I noticed was that even though Cindy was with her husband, I saw her slip out of the room alone, and Grant followed her a few minutes later. Cindy's husband was sitting and laughing with the other members of our team and didn't seem to notice his wife's absence. I saw Grant return to the room about 20 minutes later. Cindy was still missing. I didn't actually see her return, but the next time I noticed she returned to her place at the table. Of course, I had a couple of dances with Grant, and I was pleased when he praised me for my dress. By then we had both had a few drinks, and I admit that I snuggled up to him, maybe a little closer than usual. I was impressed by what I felt between us for a short time. However, he seemed slightly embarrassed by this and gently pushed me away from his body with a smile. On the next song, he tapped Tom on the shoulder to switch partners. I felt a pang of disappointment at what seemed like a rejection, so I seductively pressed myself into Tom, who didn't seem to mind. At the end of the evening, Tom called a taxi and drove with me to my den. Asking the driver to wait, he walked me to my door. We were both drinking and were pretty fun, so I pulled him to me to press my lips to his. He kissed me back with some passion until we broke away from each other, and I breathlessly invited him in. We both knew what I was offering, so imagine my surprise when he refused, whispering, "Thank you, you're great, but I can't." Before I could ask why or even say anything else, he returned to the waiting taxi and drove away. Nothing was said on Monday morning. Tom greeted me with a smile and told me how much he enjoyed my company. It was too public for me to ask about his sudden departure, so I just smiled and went to my desk. Grant arrived about 5 minutes later and asked me to join him in his office. It was unusual. I followed him and took the offered seat when he took off his jacket. "Did you have a good time on Saturday night?" I answered in the affirmative. He smiled and continued, "Okay, I enjoyed dancing with you, you looked great. Young Tom behaved well and brought you home safe and sound." Again, my answer was positive. "I'm glad to hear that." Then we talked about the job I was doing, whether I liked it, whether it was something I was interested in, and so on. As soon as he listened to my answers, he seemed to get a little distracted, then looked at his computer. "I would like to discuss your progress and plans for the future in the new year. When we get back, we'll arrange something, maybe have an informal meeting somewhere." Then he paused and looked thoughtful for a long time, and then said, "Okay, that's it for now, have a good rest." That's all. I was sent. When I left his office, Cindy walked past me to enter his office. She looked a little tense, and I noticed that she had tightly closed the door behind her. I was too busy to notice when the door opened, but the next time I saw her, Cindy returned to her desk and looked much more relaxed than when she walked past me into the office. Later that day, I mentioned to Natalie about my meeting with Grant, and that Grant wanted to talk to me later. She smiled. "That's good, he likes you, we both think you'll fit in well with us. We'll talk again too." I went home to my family for Christmas, staying until the new year. It was nice to be at home with my parents and see old friends. I met my old boyfriend and his new partner. He seemed happy enough. When I returned to work, I was relaxed and engaged. Like the rest of the team, over time, I was able to offer more and really enjoyed the opportunity to expand my experience. One of my concerns was that Grant seemed a little more distant towards me. And the rest of the team, at times he seemed distracted and hardly spoke to me. In particular, he did not mention our further meeting. We met as a team a couple more times, and I danced with Grant, but for some reason, everything was different. Time seemed to fly by, and my secondment was coming to an end when Grant called me into his office one Monday morning. "Are you free Friday night?" I told him yes. "Okay, I'll pick you up at 7 o'clock. We can talk about your future, get dressed for a meal, and maybe we'll dance a little." I nodded in agreement before he added, "Okay, now I think Natalie would like to see you in the conference room." Natalie told me that they were pleased with my work and impressed with my attitude to work. She handed me a sealed envelope, which, according to her, contained the university certificate forms that she had filled out for me, as well as a letter to my course teacher. When she got up to announce the end of our meeting, she asked, "Has Grant made an appointment with you this week?" I said yes, he did. "Okay, I know he has an offer for you." Her comment made me think, what kind of offer is this? Why after work, at a restaurant, at a dance? I wasn't interested in a relationship with him. After all, I didn't really like him, of course, in that sense, and from his reaction when we danced, I was sure that the feeling was mutual. The week seemed to last forever as I racked my brain over what would happen at our meeting. It was Friday, and he hadn't been in the office all day, so I couldn't gauge his mood. It was a rush, but I was ready at the appointed time. I put on a modest, little black dress. It was not too short and showed only a decent amount of cleavage. My favorite heels and new underwear completed my outfit. He knocked on my door just in time and took me to his car. Imagine my surprise when I saw Natalie there, and another man whom I had not met before. Grant held the front passenger door open for me, and as I slid into the seat, Natalie introduced her husband to me. Ralph smiled and said, "Hi, it's nice to finally meet you." Soon we were sitting in a cozy restaurant with a drink in our hands. Grant spoke first. "Thank you for joining us tonight, Natalie, and I want to discuss your future, in particular, where it can be mutually beneficial. We thought it would be best to have an informal conversation in a relaxed atmosphere." As soon as our meal was ordered, Natalie said that they both thought I fit in well and that, provided I got the degree I was supposed to get, I should talk to them about a permanent position right after graduation. They handed me a draft employment contract detailing the remuneration package they were willing to offer. It was better than I expected. Then, when I finished reading, Grant smiled and added, "We are very interested in your services, so please read this." He handed me a piece of paper. "This is a preliminary offer, an advance, if you want, to help you get through next year." Natalie took the floor. "We hope that this will put us in a favorable position for your future services." I was speechless. They were going to pay me a weekly allowance that would cover my living expenses for the next school year. I think my mouth must have been ajar when she continued, "There are no obligations attached to our offer. You are free to live your life as you see fit. We just hope that you will continue to work hard and then call us first when you graduate." What could I say? My smile must have given me away. Maybe even the tears in my eyes gave them a clue. Grant saved me. Enough business talk for today. Let's enjoy the food and the rest of the evening. What could I say? I managed to thank them and promised not to let them down. The food was wonderful and we danced late. They dropped me off at midnight. Grant walked me to my door, and although I hesitated, I kissed him on the cheek because I thought it was just polite. He didn't seem to mind too much. It took me a couple of weeks to get back to the routine of university life, and I had to get used to a couple of new roommates. However, it was during the usual round of rookie parties that I met my future husband. We were the same age, and he was also about to start his senior year. He had a 3-year course, but he had a year to travel after school, so now he caught up with me when I stayed for 4 years. As I mentioned earlier, we quickly realized that we were made for each other, and soon we were making plans for our future life together. We agreed that as soon as each of us had a suitable career, we would get married. Of course, I was ahead of the curve in achieving this goal, but he was smart, so I knew it wouldn't be long before we could move forward in our lives. Despite wanting to spend as much time with each other as possible, we both worked hard and got the good degrees we needed. Upon graduation, I immediately accepted Natalie and Grant's offer. While John soon found the job he wanted, we opened a joint savings account and planned a wedding in June. My job was as I expected. I needed to learn something, but I immediately joined the team, as if I had never left. As before, Natalie was friendly and helpful. Grant was not so much. He was the same as I remembered him, at times aloof, harsh, sometimes even rude, but on the whole he was businesslike and very professional. We had our occasional holiday evenings, and my feelings for Grant remained the same. I had my turn to dance with him, and he kept me at arm's length, especially during slow dances. I do not know why, but it slightly annoyed me, although I did not really like him, but I found his attitude, his manner very attractive. As I said before, he felt strong, powerful, even charismatic. All I knew was that when I was in his arms, I was glad. My body reacted to him, even if my mind didn't want it. It was a strange feeling. I certainly didn't have any romantic feelings for him, and I had no intention of getting close to him. The work became more and more interesting. Natalie took me around the company as part of my training. I learned a lot, but I wondered where my future workplace was. It seemed that as soon as I found out what I was doing at a particular job, she transferred me to the next one. One day I asked for a meeting to discuss it. She explained that with my education, I could handle any job, so she wanted me to get a complete picture of the whole company, and then when the time came, I would be promoted according to my knowledge and position. One of the issues I needed to discuss was that, as a young married woman, I would soon want to have children. Natalie smiled and said, "Of course you will, and I want to assure you that we will support you in everything." I asked how it was possible. I would need to take a vacation, maybe even retire, to take care of the children we might have. She brushed it off with words, "I am sure that your husband will support you if you decide to stay at work. We will make sure that you get help." And so, when 18 months later I told Natalie that I was pregnant, she transferred me to our accounting department. I had worked there before, so I knew what I needed. For the next 5 months, I was on the move, with a home office, a computer connected to the company server, and the task of modifying our financial systems to cope with remote management. I was encouraged to work from home to check the systems if I had a hard day or a clinic visit. My son Aaron was born without complications, and Natalie took a break during the first few weeks when I was breastfeeding and getting used to the routine of a young mother. In fact, she visited me regularly, often working in my home office all day. Once things got better for me and John got used to being a hands-on father, I had to go to the office 1 day a week. We developed a procedure to do this, and everything was fine in my world. The days at the office gradually increased, and we hired an au pair to help with the baby. I soon became pregnant again and, following a similar procedure, eventually became the proud mother of Sophie's healthy daughter. John and I decided that 2 children were enough for us, so I went back to contraceptives and John had a vasectomy. When I once mentioned this to Natalie in conversation, she seemed pleased but did not say anything significant about it. 6 months later, I was promoted to a senior position, and what was strange was that I continued to move around the business, now heading every department I worked in. Now I participated in management meetings with Natalie and Grant, where we discussed strategy and plans. Then, a year after Sophie was born, my life took a completely unexpected turn. "We need to discuss an important issue with you, and we would like to do it without delay. Please, after work today. I expect this will delay you for at least a couple of hours, so apologize to John and join us in the boardroom in half an hour, please," Natalie said, a little more formally than she usually talked to me. When I arrived, Grant was already there, sitting in an armchair in the corner of the room. He pointed to the sofa and invited me to sit down. Natalie joined me and sat down in another chair. "Coffee for everyone." As soon as we sorted out our drinks, Grant dropped the bomb. "I want to leave the company. I will not retire, but I will not be so involved in the day-to-day business." I opened my mouth to ask a lot of questions that flooded my mind. I worked in all areas of the business, except for part of it, and no one else replaced him. He was unique in the company, and as far as I could tell, he was the key to its success and even, perhaps, to its Survival. Before I could say anything, Natalie started. We want you to take on the role of Grant. You know how our company works. You were smart, enthusiastic, and, most importantly, loyal. I must have looked shocked. At that moment, of course, I couldn't find the words. Grant took the floor. I'm not going to leave completely yet. I will obviously need to transfer my knowledge, train you, if you want. I will spend up to 2 years to introduce you to what I do and transfer my various contacts. I know you can do this job. You're perfect for it. But there's one condition. Then Natalie interrupted him. Of course, you will become a director and will have the title of vice president. Your salary and benefits will increase accordingly. If your training period ends successfully, you will receive a number of shares in the company, becoming a co-owner with Grant and me. She pushed a document across the table to me that outlined the details of the offer, and I was amazed at what they thought I was worth. I'll leave you now to discuss this with Grant. With that, she took her purse and left. What do you think? Grant interjected. Are you worried about the prospect of being with me? I immediately thought it was strange to say, especially when I saw a teasing expression on his face that I hadn't seen before. Maybe there was a slight smile on his lips. As soon as I noticed it, he became the Grant I always knew again. John will need to be on board because there will be periods when you will need to travel with me. Well, I began. Wait, there is one condition, an important consideration, which, I'm afraid, is not subject to discussion. At the same time, he got up and sat down next to me on a plush leather sofa. He looked me straight in the eye and said, there is a price to pay for my skill and mentoring. He brought his face close to mine, then uttered words that sent a shockwave right through me. I'm going to use you. Wow. I was caught off guard, completely stunned. I wondered if I had heard him correctly. My jaw must have dropped, because before I could react, his lips met mine and his tongue was deep in my mouth, his big hand holding my head in place as he stunned me with a passionate kiss. Holding my breath, I tried to resist. He caught my hand when I tried to slap him. Then when he broke the kiss, I screamed at him, you arrogant pig, how dare you do this to me? Who do you think you are? I struggled to pull my hands out of his, continuing my tirade, leave me alone, let me go, you know I'm a married woman. His burst of laughter interrupted me. Yes, I know that you are married, I hope happily. That's the thing, you understand, I only need you as a married woman. For this to work, you have to be married. His answer stunned me. He emphasized, must, and now I also paid attention to him. I've always struggled with relationships. All the attractive women I meet are either married or hunting for gold. I don't need the last group, but the destruction of a happy marriage is more attractive to you, isn't it? I protested, getting to my feet. You get pleasure from destroying families, causing suffering and disappointment, don't you? Standing and looking down at him. When I finished my statement, I noticed that he was smiling at me, waiting for me, looking annoyingly calm. You misunderstood me. I am not interested in breaking up your marriage. I want you to return home to your family. It's important to me that you stay in love with your husband, because I don't need your emotional attachment. I definitely don't want you to fall in love with me. I just want my basic needs to be met. He stood facing me. I find you extremely attractive. You are beautiful, very smart, and, most importantly, ambitious. His hands were now on my hips. I've wanted to use you since the first day I met you, but you were single. Now you want my job. The time has come, and all I want in return is to use you. Why now? I interrupted him. Why did you wait until I had a husband and children? That's the whole point. Don't you see? He gently brushed a stray strand of hair from my face. My needs are simple. I don't want anything related to a permanent relationship. I just want you to satisfy my carnal need and do it regularly. But I don't even like you. You're rude. All the time that I've known you, you've kept me at arm's length. You haven't shown any interest in me as a woman. I just don't get it. Why the hell should I agree to your condition? The annoying smile returned. Because you are ambitious, you want to get this job. You need the power that it will give. Prestige is important to you. The whole package worries you a lot. I see it and you know it. He was right. Well, at least partially. I really wanted this job. I really wanted it. But could I make love to this man to get it? My thoughts went back to the times when I danced with him, his powerful presence, the confident touch when he held me, the feeling of dominance when we swayed to the music, then a kiss just now. My body wanted it, betrayed by my own involuntary reaction. I wondered if it would be so bad, how it happened. I can't remember everything right now. My thoughts were interrupted by the fact that he kissed me again. He pulled me to him and pressed his lips to mine. He pushed me over to the table in the boardroom. Now I was completely at his mercy. He left me no choice. It happened so quickly. His dominance over me now seemed complete. Beauty, you have no idea how long I have been waiting for this moment, the opportunity to see your beautiful body, taste you and finally possess you. He took a step back from me, his eyes wandering over me as I tried to catch my breath. I looked at the door. Would I be able to get to it and escape? Did I even want this? While I was thinking about it, he spoke again. I won't stop you if you decide to leave, it's your choice, the promotion you deserve, the promotion you want, and all you have to do is, well, I told you what I want for this. What is my condition? Remember that this is just a business. Now everything depends on you. Undressing will not only fulfill my dreams but also confirm your agreement with my proposal, but I also promise not to disappoint you. By no means. Our eyes met while my mind was spinning, trying to solve my dilemma. Then he asked, so what did I want? I've worked hard, I deserve a promotion, don't I? Could I deceive John, my love, the man of my dreams, my dear John? Would submitting to this arrogant man be so bad? Is this job worth the risk I'm taking? How would I hide this from my family? Did I want this? All the while my mind was pondering these questions, my body was making a choice. Involuntarily my shaking hands undid the zipper on the dress, then reached for the clasp of the bra. Eventually, realizing what I was already doing, I spoke softly, you leave me no choice, you arrogant bastard. But you know that, don't you? I should hate you. I really should tell you to just fuck off and get on with your job. Let you know that I don't need this. You really enjoy it. You think you deserve it. Believing you can get everything you want, you bastard. I despise you. Even as I was talking, I completely gave up. All this time, I was looking back at him with what I hoped was a defiant look. Then, without taking my eyes off him, I leaned back on the table, raised my arms above my head. My body was completely open to him. I lay completely obeying him. I didn't watch him take off his clothes, but soon I felt his bare legs pushing my thighs apart. His hands held my hips so that I wouldn't move away from him. I take it you're interested in my offer. He leaned over me. Tell me what you want, what you agreed to. Come on, you can say it. You're a pig, I whispered. I want your job. Okay, I agree to your terms. Take me. I raised my head to look into his eyes. When he didn't move a single muscle, his manhood teasingly froze at my entrance. I gave up. Hurry up, you bastard. This time I raised my voice. I expected it to sound angry, but even to my ears it was a scream full of lust. That's all it took. I was confused. My hands reached out to him. He started to get dressed. In the end, he broke the silence. Put on your dress. We need to discuss more details, but not here. He took my underwear and put it in his pocket. You won't need this yet. He then handed me the dress. Come on, let's find a comfortable place. Without objecting, I obeyed meekly. As soon as I put on my dress and shoes, he took me out of the office, locked me up and took me to his car. I looked at him questioningly. He knew what I wanted, to my apartment. It's not far. I hope you've bought us enough time. His apartment was expensively furnished. I only glanced at it as we hurried to his bedroom, and I liked it too. He let me play for a while, then lifted me to my feet, carried us to the bed, lay on his back and pulled me to him. Once again, the power of this man completely took over me. It wasn't the lovemaking that I shared with John. Instead it was unbridled passion, two people lost in desire, madly wanting to touch, feel, and taste every part of each other. As soon as I calmed down, he took me to the bathroom, where I took a shower. He handed me my underwear, and I dressed quickly. Discuss everything with your husband over the weekend. Make sure that travel will not be a problem, and we will discuss everything in more detail on Monday morning. Is it best to do this before the others arrive, say, at 6:30 a.m.? He brought me back to my car when I was about to leave him. He kissed me and said, thank you, it was what I was hoping for. You're just the best, exactly what I imagined, and I'm looking forward to many more repetitions. I could only stare wide-eyed as he continued. Now I have your consent. I intend to use you anytime I want, and you will fulfill my wishes. After tonight, I know that you will obey my wishes, and you will definitely like it. It wasn't a question, too stunned to answer. I left him and went home to my husband. My head was spinning from the business opportunities that had just presented themselves to me. Now, looking back, I'm ashamed to admit that what I just did to deserve it was forgotten, transferred to the part of my brain that had no conscience, to the part that was ready to accept what he said. It's just business. The end justifies the means. As I expected, John supported me, striving for me to follow my dream, with what I had to earn. He even agreed to reduce his work commitments in order to take more care of our children, now that they were older. He could take care of their needs while I was doing my job. He said he could sort out childcare, and later their extracurricular clubs, etc. Of course, I didn't tell him about one important condition that I agreed to. One thing I decided was that I needed to regain some control over the grant. How dare he tell me that he will take me whenever he wants? I would have talked to him as soon as I walked in on Monday. I would have made it clear to him that making love to him would be on my terms. After all, I wasn't a cheater. I wasn't there just for his pleasure. No, I wasn't a cheater. Part of me, I think, was honest enough to know that I would eventually give in to him, and so accepted it. We just need to be careful. So it was a clear and early Monday morning when I started what was supposed to be the most amazing week for me. Grant was at his desk when I arrived, so I started explaining to him that what we did on Friday was wrong. You can't just demand services to satisfy yourself. That's all I had time to say when he interrupted me. Take off your dress. His words stopped my flow. I wasn't sure what I had just heard. Now, take it off now. His eyes were glued to mine as he moved towards me. He moved with bestial speed to take me in his arms. His lips did not let anything escape except a moan. I felt all my resistance weaken before he retreated. What did you not understand? Your training has already begun. I want to see your body now. What could I do? My dress was on the floor, the rest of the underwear was piled on top of it. He looked at my nakedness with a satisfied smile. So what were you talking about? I tried to resist. I really resisted, but the words wouldn't come out of my mouth. He threw me over his knee and spanked me, really spanked my bare ass and even made me count every slap. Tears of pain flowed down my cheeks for the first few minutes and then it happened. I went crazy with desire. Begged him to use me. I opened up to him and he took me roughly. Seemingly completely uninterested in my pleasure, he completely dominated me, and to my shame, I enjoyed every second of it. When he was done, we cleaned up. We only had a few minutes left before the rest of the staff arrived. As soon as Natalie arrived, Grant and I met with her to sign my new employment contract, etc. I could tell from Natalie's expression that she was fully aware of the deal I had made with Grant, but she didn't say anything about it, at least not then. As soon as the rest of the staff arrived, they were informed about my promotion and new responsibilities. The only surprise that surprised me was that Cindy was no longer part of the team. Natalie informed us that she had resigned immediately. I was never really meant to find out, but I suspect I took her place as Grant's new toy and that's why she left. I spent most of the day cleaning my desk, handing over everything I was working onto my old team. I didn't spend any more time alone with Grant that day. Early Tuesday morning found me in Grant's office again. This time I barely protested as I leaned face down over his desk. I didn't seem to like this man, but I definitely liked what he was doing to me, and to my shame, I realized that I was now looking forward to working under him in every way. I took over what used to be his desk as he preferred to work in an easy chair located in the bay window niche. We discussed the projects he was working on and he divided them up, advising me what I should do with the ones that were allocated to me in the first place. When we were closing at the end of the day, he informed me that on Thursday I would need a bag for the night, as we were going to a client and had to stay overnight. We were going to have fun, so he assumed I would need a cocktail dress. John took it all calmly as I expected. When I told him about the overnight trip, he didn't bat an eye, even when he saw what I was packing. Are you supposed to be attractive? What is it? He asked as I folded my shiny dress. I think it's going to be a big part of my new job, I replied with a smile. As soon as my bag was ready, I undressed and tried to give my husband enough love to last him until the weekend. Our trip and meeting with the client went well. We checked into the hotel. I was not surprised to find that only one room was booked. What I didn't expect was that it was in my name. If John calls and asks for your number, he won't get an unpleasant surprise, Grant explained in response to my questioning look as we rode up in the elevator. Despite my objections, so it was very weak protests, he took me to the shower. His ramrod hardness hit me against the tiled wall before we got ready for dinner. The client was a pleasant company and I could tell that I had made the right impression. Grant certainly seemed pleased when we eventually returned to our room. We got up late, so we were in bed when I called John to check and make sure the kids were okay and ready for school. I do not know how I managed not to laugh. As my workouts continued and the novelty faded, Grant's demands on my body eased a little and impromptu office sessions became less frequent. We always slept together when traveling. I adjusted my working hours to free up the afternoon on Friday. We all finished at 12 o'clock in the afternoon and I spent that afternoon at his apartment. Grant seemed pleased with this arrangement and John's desire for me never waned, so I was an extremely satisfied woman as a result. For his part, John seemed content with the life we shared. I never turned him down. On the other hand, he really enjoyed his starring role with the kids. Obviously, we were vacationing together as a family, although I had to work overtime to make sure Grant could cope without my help during my absence. 2 years of study seemed to fly by and Grant announced that he would no longer be in the office every day. Privately, he made it clear to me that he needed to stay in touch with the business, so I would still have to spend Friday afternoons with him, and if I needed his help with overnight trips, which I often did for obvious reasons, he would come with me. Working with Natalie and fulfilling my obligations to the Grant, I developed the business over the next 10 years. Life was good, my family was growing up and happy. One day, towards the end of the day, Natalie came into my office and sat in an alcove by the window. She smiled and said, "We need to talk." I closed my folder and joined her in the chairs. "How are things going between you and Grant?" Then she returned my surprised look. "It's okay, I've always known about you too. I congratulate you on keeping your agreement very carefully. I'm sure no one here knows what you and Grant are doing. How long do you want this to last?" My puzzled and surprised expression made me smile. She continued, "I think he loves you. He definitely needs you." She held my even more surprised gaze. "You know he'll never come between you and John?" Undeterred, she continued, "I've never seen him so pleased. but if you want to cool off with him, maybe now is the right time. I felt my initial bewilderment turn to horror at the suggestion. The idea of ever turning down the grant never crossed my mind until she mentioned it. Yes, as a person he remained the same handsome, arrogant, cocky, vain and arrogant man I had always known, but he was my longtime lover and it was too long to give him up, so I suppose I love him in some ways too. His dominant nature and inventive mind mean that I still crave what we do in bed and other places. He hardly does any business at all, so he has no influence on me in this regard. Now he is a real silent partner, but when we're together, I'm not silent at all. He still has everything he needs to make me ask for his attention and scream with pleasure. That's why I keep doing it and why I will never voluntarily give it up. I asked Natalie uncertainly if she thought he was bored with me. Natalie knew me so well, she always knew how to read me, and that's why she smiled as she answered, "No, quite the contrary. We both saw something special in you and turned out to be right. The years that we have worked together show this, but perhaps changes are coming." She looked thoughtful for a few moments, then quickly added, "Invite Grant here tomorrow. We need to hold an extraordinary board meeting. I need to discuss something important." Without waiting for an answer, she left the office. The three of us sat down at a table in the boardroom. Natalie broke the silence. "I want to retire. I have to go." Grant and I looked at each other. She continued, "We have an offer for business, an offer that will benefit all three of us. I want us to accept it. The offer is strictly limited in time. I have to inform the partners of the answer in an hour." She presented us both with a document detailing the proposal. I understood why she would want to agree. It was an exceptionally good offer. Our team will be retained by the new owner with improved benefits. The buyer will install his own manager, so it will affect me the most. My advantage is that my share of the purchase price will completely allow me to retire. I will not need to work. Grant looked at me. "You are the youngest. I think you haven't planned to retire yet. I suppose you could negotiate a position with the new owner." But I held Grant's gaze for a moment, then switched to Natalie. "They were waiting for me to say something. I see that from your point of view the offer is too good to refuse. You and the company have given me so much, and now I'm glad to give it up to return to my family." I noticed a dark shadow pass over Grant's eyes and continued, "And that's why I'll approve it. But now I have a condition." They both shifted in their seats, waiting for me to find the words. "I enjoyed every day I spent here with you and the whole team. I am proud of my achievements. I am glad that I played a role in the success of the company." My serious expression turned into a smile as I continued, "I also have an ideal family, a husband whom I love and who loves me. I still like John, and I'm sure I will for many years to come. My wonderful children are mainly the merit of my husband. Now I will be able to enjoy the reunion and more active communication with them. Of course, you know how important my family is to me, but do I really want to quit my job here completely? I left it in limbo, and that I was sure I had their full attention. But to quote what was said to me many years ago, it's just a business." When I repeated Grant's words from our past, I met his eyes and saw him smile. "Retired or not," I paused for effect, "I'm going to use you anyway. I'm sorry, I know he's your brother, but I can't resist a handsome, arrogant, demanding bastard. I made a deal with the devil, a compromise that led to years of lying, cheating, but in return I get great lovemaking from him, and there's no way I want it to end. He is a part of my life, and what we have in common means a lot to me." Natalie didn't say anything. She just smiled, then picked up her purse and left Grant and me in our private negotiations. We sold the company, and a month later I started a new chapter in my life. Overall, John seemed happy to see me at home more often, but looked puzzled when I got dressed, ready to leave the house on that first Friday lunch break. "I thought you retired." "Oh, I'm sorry, didn't I say that my special skills are still needed, so my services have been saved for 1 day a week, although sometimes I may need to travel." I smiled sweetly and walked past him. "I have to go, don't worry, I'll be back soon, it's just business."